Most gracious God, take our minds and think through them. Take our lips and speak through them. Take our hearts and set them on fire with love for you. Amen.
Amen.
So today is both Mother's Day and it is Good Shepherd Sunday, if you hadn't guessed by the bulletin cover and by the readings that we have. Good Shepherd Sunday always comes about this time during the Easter season. Called that because it's the time when we, instead of talking about a resurrection appearance, go back and look before Jesus' death and resurrection in the Gospel of John, where there's this long discourse about comparing him to the Good Shepherd. So I want to talk just a minute about mothers and shepherds, and then I want to go to this confusing thing that he says in this passage where he calls himself the gate. Not the shepherd, but the gate. So mothers and shepherds. You know, I am a mother of 3 and grandmother of 2, and I think that what I found, not only when they were little, but even now, that mothering is a lot like what I think shepherding must be like. At least if I judge shepherding by things like this 23rd Psalm and other songs like the hymn we sang that's based on this psalm, and other passages in John and other places where it compares Jesus, and in the Old Testament where it talks about God as the Good Shepherd. Mothering and shepherding seem to be a little bit alike for me. In both, you're trying to lead people to find the green pastures, the place where they can be fed. Now, I find that true not only in my work as a mother to my children, but also in my work here as a mother to this community. That's part of what being a priest or a pastor is about. Pastor, of course, comes from the whole shepherding lexicon of words. That it's about leading people to find green pastures, to find where they can be fed. It is indeed about walking with our children as mothers, or walking with other people as mentors or leaders. And fathers, you know, we're focusing on mothers too, but it's true of fathers also. Providing that comfort, providing that place that when the storm just gets to the point in life that our children or those with us just can't handle it, that we're providing the comfort, we're stilling those waters, even if it's through tough love. That there is a walking with them whenever they walk through the valley of their own shadows of death, as we all do, both literally and figuratively. It is spreading a table before them in terms of whatever it is that they need. All of these things, all of these images that we see in this 23rd Psalm for shepherding can certainly be applied to mothering. And so on this day, we honor and give thanks for our own mothers, biological and adopted. We give thanks for other women that have mothered us, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, aunts, big sisters, special friends, teachers, hosts of women who have shepherded us, mothered us in those ways. We give thanks for all of them today. And we remember that all of these things are a lot like shepherding. But then that brings us to this hard statement where Jesus is talking about shepherding and bringing up, just by doing so, all these images of this psalm that his disciples would have known by memory. They would have learned it as we little boys in Hebrew class. They had to memorize all of the psalms. And so they would have known very well what he was talking about. But then he says, not only is he like the Good Shepherd, that he's the gate. And that sounds sort of confusing, that Jesus is the gate. We're not the only ones that get confused by that. The passage tells us that when he said this to the disciples, they didn't get it. They didn't understand exactly what he meant. Jesus is the gate. But our misunderstanding comes for different reasons. Our misunderstanding comes is because we don't understand what a sheep gate was in first century Palestine. And so we may picture a big corral with a big wooden gate that somebody swings open. And how could Jesus be that swinging door? But see, that wasn't the case in first century Palestine. Shepherds were nomads. They traveled from place to place with their sheep, going usually in the hillsides, finding pasture, and then moving on and moving on and moving on. And at night, some of them, yes, stayed in the fields, but most of them came down to whatever village or community was nearby. And in the center of that village or community, there was a big corral where all the different flocks were brought for the night for safety, and where all the shepherds could come and they would have some community, and they got to know each other even though their flocks were different. And the gate to that corral was just an opening. It was the gate through which the sheep were brought in, and the gate through which the next day the sheep would be led out, as each shepherd had a special name or voice or call for their sheep and would say that, and their sheep would come to that call, almost like you'd call your dog or your cat. And if, well, maybe a cat won't come, but a dog anyway. If you call out in the neighborhood, there may be lots of dogs, and hopefully your dog will come, unless it's Leah's dog, of course, who will run the other way. But the idea is for the dog to come, and typically the sheep would recognize that, and they would come, and the shepherd would have his or her own flock, because sometimes there were women shepherds, and would take those sheep out, and then the next shepherd would give his sound and call his flock, and so on and so forth. But during the night, since there was no real gate of wood or anything to hold anything out, one of the shepherds would sleep in the gate. Like if this was a gate, he would just lie down in the gate. They would take turns, different shepherds being the gate. And the job of the shepherd who was the gate was to make sure that nothing came through that gate that wasn't supposed to, whether it was a predator that was an animal, or whether it was somebody, a person that might be a thief, sneaking in to steal the sheep. And so the gate was there for protection, and the gate was one of the shepherds whose job it was to let in and out. And the true shepherds always were known because they came through the gate and didn't try to sneak in through any other way. So that kind of clears it up for us, but you see the disciples knew that already. They knew that. They had grown up knowing that. And what's more, they also knew that God was usually compared to a shepherd, which would include something about maybe that gate, that the Lord is my shepherd. The 23rd Psalm was written long before Jesus. So they knew this already. So their confusion was, well, what does it mean for Jesus to be that gate? What is he saying to us? What is he saying to us? And what he's saying is this. He's saying that he has shown them the way in and the way out. That when they look at him, they will see what God sees as the way in and the way out. The way in for protection, and the way out for an abundant life where you find green pastures. He says, I'm showing you the way. And what was even more confusing, though, was the way he showed was very counterintuitive. It was very counterintuitive. The way of Jesus was the way that we truly find safety, and the way that we truly find abundant life and green pastures. When we actually look at the way that Jesus shows, it doesn't look like the gate to that. Let me give you some examples. What often looks like the gate to us is to hold on tight to what we think and what we believe about something, to make our stand. We like to say that, I've made my stand, and I will not be moved. And yet Jesus points us to a way that quite often the abundance in life that God has for us is letting go of some of those thoughts and beliefs. Being a little more flexible. Not being so fast to stand in Egypt, but being willing to go out into the wilderness where there's no food or security but manna. That doesn't sound the way to protection and safety and abundant life. And yet that's the way that Jesus shows. That the gate is through letting go instead of holding quite so tight. Another example. Sometimes we think the way to have an abundant life just means full life, joyful life, a life that is fulfilling for us. And a lot of times we think the way to that is to succeed in whatever idea it is that we have that we need to succeed. And for some people that may mean a big house and nice cars. For some people that may mean that their stock portfolio looks really good. For some people that may just mean that we have a shelter over our head tonight. It means different things to different people. But we often get it in our heads that it's our ability to succeed in providing this idea for ourselves that is what's going to be the gate to abundant life. But Jesus shows a way where failure is as important as success. The cross was not success in the eyes of anybody. And yet the cross was the gate to a life that means more than death. And so it was through the failure in the eyes of the world that opened the way for the abundant life that's available to us all. So the gate that Jesus shows doesn't make any sense. It's confusing. That we should embrace our failures? Wow. That's a different way of life. It's counterintuitive. Let me give you another example. We tend to think that we have to have certain things in order to be okay. And for some of us, it's a lot of things we think we have to have. For others, maybe it's little things, you know? I mean, there was a time when I thought I couldn't be okay if I lived by myself. And it's only been since I've been here and lived by myself that I've learned that I can be okay in living by myself. And you know, maybe I would enjoy sharing life with other people in my house, but I can be perfectly okay in that. And yet I would never have known that without being in a situation where I let go of the whole network of community and people I had in Knoxville and moved to a place where I knew no one. It was going through the gate of losing something that abundance was revealed. That I could begin to learn that whatever was there could be enough and could be better than enough. You see, time and time again, Jesus, as the gate, doesn't point us to the lists of shoulds with capital S in italics, underlined several times, that we try to live our life. Our life should look this way. Our life should look that way. I shouldn't have to deal with this. I should have this. And we can do it till it drives us crazy. And every time we go through that gate of should, we end up with something less than what's abundant. And Jesus shows us a gate where God says, look around and see what is. Look around and see what is in this gate, because God always works not with what should be, but what is. God takes what already is and works with that. And when we're able to let go and fail and lose, we become more willing to go through a gate that doesn't look anything like we think it should. And yet it is the reality of the gate that is. And within what is, Jesus says, I will always provide abundant life. I will walk with you. I will be with you. I will comfort you. I will strengthen you. I will show you where the green pastures are, even if it all looks dead. All we have to be willing to do is to deal with what is. Because God will always take what is and transform it into something that we never thought it could be. Well, I think that might be a lot like mothering. You know? Certainly it's a lot like pastoring. I think it's a lot like mentoring. Yeah, it's a lot like fathering, sistering, brothering. Any position that we're ever in. That ability to walk with each other in a way that helps each other let go, helps each other embrace their own failures, helps each other deal with the things they lose. Whenever we do that, we are the shepherd that went in through the gate. May it be so.